The coffee shop buzzed with energy, but to Mark it was all static. The hiss of the espresso machine, the clink of ceramic cups, the low murmur of conversations, none of it reached him. He stared at the email on his screen for what felt like an hour, the bold subject line branding itself into his brain. "We regret to inform you." Again, a third job rejection this month, 37th this year. His hands clenched on the table. He was 34, living back at his parents' house in Atlanta, with a degree from a top university and a resume filled with freelance gigs that seemed more like patchwork than a career. He sipped his cold brew, the bitterness matching the taste in his mouth. He didn't know what was worse, the silence from most companies or the polite rejections that reminded him he was not the right fit. He closed the laptop with a sigh. The noise around him crept back in, mocking his stillness. A couple laughed near the window. A barista danced slightly to the music as she poured oat milk into a to-go cup. Life was moving. His wasn't. "So you ever heard of Napoleon Hill?" Mark looked up. The voice came from the next table. An older man in a threadbare jacket sipping black coffee met his eyes. His face was lined, not just with age, but with the weight of someone who had stared down disappointment. Mark hesitated. "Think so. The Think and Grow Rich guy, right?" The man nodded slowly. "That's the one." "You ever actually read it?" "No." Mark gave a tired shrug. "Not really into the whole motivational speaker thing. It's not motivation," the man said. "It's discipline, small habits. Napoleon Hill was about planting seeds in the mind. You just have to water them long enough." Mark gave a dry laugh. "Yeah? And what's grown from yours?" The man leaned in. "Everything I have now." "Which, by the way, didn't come until I was 42. You look like you're about to give up." Mark looked away, the sting immediate and real. "Here's something Hill used to say. Don't wait. The time will never be just right. So what are you waiting for?" He didn't have an answer. The man finished his coffee and stood. "You want to change your life? Start small. 10 habits, one each week. Keep them up for 3 months, then see where you are." Mark blinked. 10 what habits?" The man smiled. "You'll figure them out. Start with this. Tomorrow morning, wake up and make your bed. First thing. Doesn't matter what happens after that. You already succeeded at one thing." And just like that, he was gone. Mark sat there, his fingers resting on his laptop, thoughts racing. Maybe it was ridiculous, maybe he was desperate enough to try. He opened a new document. At the top he typed, 10 small habits that will change my life. Then he leaned back and stared at it, like it might save him. The next morning, Mark's alarm buzzed at 7 a.m. sharp. For a moment he hovered between sleep and resistance, but then he remembered the man's words, "Make your bed." It sounded stupid, but he swung his legs off the bed and did it anyway. Pulled the sheets tight, smoothed the comforter, fluffed the pillow. Done. It took less than a minute, but it felt like he'd planted a flag. Downstairs, his mom was already sipping her tea at the kitchen table. "You're up early," he nodded, opening the fridge. "Trying something new." "Trying what?" "Discipline." He poured himself a glass of orange juice and sat down across from her. "Just small changes, one at a time." She didn't laugh or scoff. She just smiled gently and nodded. "That sounds good, honey." By 8 a.m., Mark was at his laptop. But instead of diving into job boards, he opened a blank page and titled it, Habit 1, Start the Day with Control. He wrote underneath, "Make your bed, sit with intention, begin before the world distracts you." That day, he applied for 2 jobs, but carefully. No mass applications. He tailored each cover letter, reread every sentence. Then he closed the tab and went for a walk around the neighborhood. The morning air was crisp, the kind of cool only Georgia fall could bring. Golden leaves skimming down from trees, kids waiting for school buses in oversized hoodies, dogs barking behind chain-link fences. He walked slowly, without music or podcasts, just thinking. Back home, he wrote down 3 things he'd done right that day. Made bed, applied with intention, walked without distraction. 3 small victories. The list felt like proof that his day wasn't wasted. By Friday, the bed-making had become muscle memory. He'd even started cleaning his room a little. Nothing major, just organizing the desk, throwing out receipts and junk mail. The space looked more like it belonged to someone with a plan. On Sunday, he sat down with a notebook and sketched out the next habit. Something simple but powerful. Habit 2, 1 page a day. Reading. Not scrolling articles or half-heartedly flipping through self-help books. 1 physical page from 1 real book, every day. He drove to a small independent bookstore a few blocks from downtown. The bell over the door jingled as he entered. He browsed for nearly an hour until he saw it. A clean paperback copy of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Almost poetic. The cashier rang it up, and Mark tucked the book under his arm like it was a new beginning. That night, before bed, he read the first page. Truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that, when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire. He closed the book slowly. 1 page. That's all. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was moving in a direction, even if it was small. The second week started like a whisper. Nothing grand, no breakthroughs, just repetition. Wake up. Make the bed, read 1 page, apply to 2 jobs, walk. But something subtle had shifted. Mark noticed the silence between actions wasn't filled with self-loathing anymore. It was just silence. That alone felt like progress. On Wednesday, he bumped into an old college friend at the grocery store. Rachel, still wearing her work badge from a local tech startup, did a double take when she saw him in the produce aisle. "Mark, hey," he smiled, surprised. "Rachel, wow, it's been forever." They chatted by the bananas, her eyes darting to his shopping basket. Avocados, oatmeal, herbal tea, no frozen pizza, no beer. "You look well," she said, sounding genuinely surprised. "I'm working on it," he admitted. "Trying this thing, 10 small habits, 1 each week, long story." Rachel's brow rose. "That sounds actually kind of brilliant," he laughed. "We'll see." She hesitated a second. "Hey, we've got a temp copywriting role open. Nothing fancy, but maybe it'd be a foot in the door." His pulse jumped. "Seriously?" "Yeah." "Send me your resume tonight. I'll forward it straight to HR." Back home, Mark sat at his desk, stunned. It had been 8 days, not even a full 2 weeks, and already, possibility. He didn't want to get ahead of himself. He had no illusions about the corporate world suddenly opening its arms. But it wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about traction, action. He added a note to his document. Momentum isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet click of doing the next right thing. Week 2 ended with another visit to the bookstore. This time, he wasn't looking for inspiration. He was looking for structure. On a shelf marked Productivity, he found a thin volume on daily routines of high performers, CEOs, artists, athletes. Most had one thing in common. They started their mornings with writing. Not emails, not work, just thoughts, free and messy. He bought a small moleskin notebook and labeled it Clearing the Fog. The next habit had found him. Habit 3, morning pages. 3 handwritten pages of anything every morning. Sunday night, he laid out the notebook, his pen, and Think and Grow Rich beside his pillow. Then he looked around the room, neat, calm, even a bit intentional now. No one was clapping for him. There were no trophies, no big moments. But for the first time in months, he felt proud. Not because of what he'd achieved, but because of what he was becoming. Monday morning, the pages came slowly. Mark sat at his desk, pen in hand, eyes still heavy with sleep. The rules were simple. 3 pages, stream of consciousness, no editing, no filtering. Just thoughts on paper. By the end of the first page, he was writing about fear. Fear of wasting time, fear of being ordinary, fear that no matter what habits he built, he'd still be the same man staring back in the mirror. But by page 3, the tone changed. A memory surfaced. His 8th grade teacher pulling him aside after class to say, "You're a writer, Mark, don't waste that." He hadn't thought about that moment in years. He underlined it twice in the margins. He kept it up all week. 3 pages every day. Some mornings it was garbage, rambling and scattered. Other days, clarity emerged, like light slicing through fog. That Wednesday, he got an email from Rachel. Subject: let's set up a time. The company wanted to interview him. Nothing formal yet, just an exploratory call. Still, it lit something inside him. Before the call, Mark did something he hadn't done in months. He put on a clean button-up shirt and looked at himself in the bathroom mirror. Not just a glance, he really looked. His beard was too long. His eyes had tired rings, but his shoulders were straighter and his eyes, they were clear, focused. After the call, short, friendly, promising, he didn't celebrate. Instead, he went for a jog. He hadn't planned on it. His body resisted the idea, but the energy had to go somewhere. And jogging had once been something he loved back when things were simpler. By the end of the block, his lungs burned. But something in him smiled. When he got home, sweat-soaked and aching, he knew what Habit 4 would be. Habit 4, move your body. Every day. It didn't have to be a workout, just movement. Intentional, present, energizing. The next day, he walked longer than usual. The air smelled like chimney smoke and distant pine. He passed a kid selling lemonade at a corner table, and the sight made him laugh. It was almost winter, but the hustle didn't care about the season, neither should he. That night, he journaled, "My body has been trying to tell me something for months. I just haven't been listening." On Sunday, he weighed himself. Down 4 pounds. Just water weight, maybe, but it felt symbolic. A physical reflection of internal shift. 4 habits, 4 weeks. A full month of change. No one else knew what he was doing, but the mirror didn't lie. And the man he saw looking back, he was starting to believe again. Mark's 5th week began with a phone call from his brother. "Mom says you've been waking up early, exercising, reading. Who are you and what have you done with my real brother?" Mark chuckled. "Just trying something new. Small changes." There was a pause. "Well, whatever you're doing," she says, "you seem lighter, happier." That word, happier, landed quietly in his chest. Not because it was true yet, but because it was getting closer to the truth. Later that day, he stood in front of the pantry, eyeing a box of cookies. It had been a long morning. No interview updates, a rejection email from another startup, and a headache from too much screen time. He was tired, bored, frustrated. The sugar would fix it, at least for a minute. But something inside him hesitated. Was this what he wanted, or just a reflex? He stepped back. Then he made a cup of herbal tea instead and took it to the porch. It wasn't willpower, it was awareness. That moment inspired Habit 5, delay the impulse. He wrote it down. Whenever you feel pulled by an unhealthy craving, food, phone, complaint, pause for 10 minutes. If it still matters, fine. But often it won't. This one wasn't glamorous. It didn't have a measurable outcome, but it changed everything. He started noticing how often he reached for distractions, scrolling on his phone, checking email compulsively, biting sarcasm when frustrated. Each time he paused. Sometimes he still gave in, but even then the pause gave him power. On Friday, his friend Liam texted, "Come out tonight, just beers and loud opinions." A few weeks ago, Mark would have said yes without thinking. But now, he sat with the text for a while. He liked Liam, but the night would be loud, chaotic, numbing, and Mark had a morning routine he didn't want to ruin. "Gonna pass tonight," he replied, trying to keep a streak alive. Liam sent a thumbs up. No guilt, no drama. Mark spent the night reading, writing, and sleeping early. The next morning, he felt incredible. At the cafe that Sunday, he saw the older man again, the one who had first mentioned Napoleon Hill. He was sitting by the window reading a newspaper, same coffee, same jacket. Mark approached him slowly. "Hey." The man looked up, smiled. "You're still at it?" "Week 5, Mark said. "It's working." The man nodded, satisfied. "Told you, one seed at a time." Mark hesitated, then asked, "What was your 10th habit?" The man looked out the window. "I'll tell you at the end," he said, "but you'll probably guess it before then." Mark grinned. That sounded like a challenge. That afternoon, as the wind picked up and autumn leaves danced across the sidewalk, Mark realized something powerful. Saying no, when it's aligned with your growth, isn't restriction. It's freedom. By week 6, Mark no longer needed an alarm. His body woke him at 6:45 like clockwork. He made his bed, wrote his 3 pages, read 1 page from Think and Grow Rich. Moved, some mornings a jog, others a quiet stretch. It was becoming less about effort and more about rhythm. One rainy Tuesday, while walking back from the library, he saw a woman hunched under a narrow awning, trying to shield 2 small kids from the downpour. She had no umbrella, just a thin hoodie stretched over her shoulders. Mark stopped. His fingers tightened around the library bag. The street was empty except for them. Without thinking, he walked over, pulled his own umbrella from his backpack and held it over the woman. "Let me walk you to the corner," he said. She looked startled, then grateful. "Thank you. I was starting to think we'd have to run for it." They walked slowly, the umbrella barely covering the 3 of them. The kids held her hands, water splashing their sneakers. At the crosswalk, she turned to him and smiled. "You didn't have to do that." Mark shrugged, a little embarrassed. "No big deal." "It is. No one really stops anymore." When he got home, soaked on one side but warm inside, he sat with his notebook and added, "Habit 6, give something every day." It didn't have to be big. Just 1 act of generosity. Time, attention, help, encouragement. A habit that pulled the focus away from me and toward we. That week, he tested it. He left a kind note in a library book before returning it. He paid for the coffee of the person behind him in line. He sent his old professor an email just to say thank you for believing in him. Each act took less than 5 minutes. But each one left him a little lighter. Then came Friday, the call. Rachel again, voice upbeat but businesslike. "Mark, they loved your interview. They want to bring you on for a 3-month contract. Starts next Monday. Remote, flexible, decent pay." He sat in stunned silence, gripping the phone. "It's not full-time yet," she added quickly, "but they said it's a test run." "You impressed them, who knows?" He closed his eyes. 3 months ago, he'd felt invisible. Now, he had momentum, a shot. "Tell them yes," he said. "Absolutely, yes." He got off the phone and stood in the middle of his room. Everything looked the same. Same walls, same desk, but he wasn't the same. He reached for his notebook, flipped to the first page and reread the title, 10 Small Habits That Will Change My Life. He smiled. 6 habits down, 4 to go. He didn't know what the end would look like, but for the first time, he felt like he had something worth giving. Monday arrived cold and grey, but Mark didn't mind, he had work again. He logged in early wearing a clean shirt, notebook ready beside his laptop. The onboarding was smooth, light video calls, some digital forms, a team Slack message welcoming him. Nothing dramatic, but when he shut his laptop at the end of that first day, he sat still for a moment, letting the silence settle. A smile crept across his face. He wasn't back where he once was. He was somewhere new. That week, Mark layered in habit 7, plan the next day the night before. 10 minutes each evening to write down what mattered tomorrow. No guesswork, no drifting. It gave him focus, a sense of control. Then came habit 8, no phone before 9 a.m. The first few mornings were difficult. His fingers twitched toward the screen, but once he broke the grip, his mind felt quieter, clearer. Habit 9 arrived almost without him realizing it. Celebrate small wins. Every Friday night he took himself out. A good dinner, a movie, a long walk with a pastry from his favorite bakery. He didn't need to wait for the big things anymore. The little steps mattered. By the middle of December, he was different. Not perfect, not fixed, but solid, grounded. Then one night while walking home from the bookstore, he spotted the man again, the one who'd started all of this. He was sitting on the same bench outside the cafe, sipping coffee in the cold. Mark walked up slowly. "You always hang out here," the man grinned. "Only when I'm waiting for someone who needs a reminder," Mark laughed. "Well, I guess I owe you one." They sat in silence for a moment, watching cars glide by. "I've been meaning to ask," Mark said. "You said you'd tell me your 10th habit, if I hadn't guessed it by now." The man sipped his coffee. "You probably already know it." "Try me." The man turned toward him, eyes steady. "Protect the story you're telling yourself." Every day, life will try to rewrite it for you, make you smaller, make you doubt. The real habit, it's remembering you get to write the ending. Mark felt the words settle deep in his chest. That night, back home, he opened his notebook to the final page and wrote it down. Habit 10, protect the story. He sat there for a while, reading through all 10. Then he flipped to a fresh page and wrote, Chapter 1, Becoming. Not for a YouTube channel, not for a blog, just for him, because the habits hadn't just changed his life. They'd given him one he wanted to live.